Well, Caitlyn should have broke that record in 4 years. But because there's a COVID year, and then there's another year, you know what I mean? So in the same amount of time that the record was set in, then it's legitimate. But if you have an extra year to break a record, to me, did you truly break the record? So with COVID and all of those things, I thought, honest mistake, but maybe I'm not allowed to make those. I thought that it was Caitlyn's 5th year. She's not a bully. Well, I mean, if you want to talk about bullies, we can talk about every time Caitlyn has the ball, she pushes off.
She made news last week when she sat up there and was applauding Indiana Fever players, but then forgot to mention Caitlyn Clark, which leads the WNBA. The average attendance of WNBA games not involving Caitlyn Clark is on average 8,490, an 85% drop from games that Caitlyn Clark is not participating.
Whatever you want, you can have your own opinion about anybody, but you do have to get the statistics right. I mean, facts matter. And if you just get...
What's up, you guys? I'm Rachel Demita, and welcome to the Courtside Club. Today, we have to talk about Caitlyn Clark's #1 hater, Cheryl Swoopes.
Cheryl Swoops just got fired, and honestly, she had it coming. This woman couldn't handle Caitlyn Clark being better and let her petty jealousy take over. Instead of celebrating the WNBA finally getting some real attention, she's been out here like a full-blown villain, throwing shade at Clark every chance she gets. According to ESPN's Stephen A. Smith, Swoopes was taken off the commentary team because of her personal views about Clark, which became apparent during her previous remarks. Swoopes was discussing the Indiana Fever on a podcast, and she was all like, "Oh, the Fever's been tremendous," naming players left and right: Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hull, everyone except Caitlyn Clark. Seriously, she wouldn't even mention Clark's name. That's not just an oversight, that's some next-level hating right there. So when Swoopes got yanked from the broadcast team for a Dallas Wings game and replaced by Nancy Lieberman, everyone knew what was up. ESPN's Stephen A. Smith even spilled the tea on his show, saying it wasn't just a scheduling issue. It was all about Swoopes' personal feelings toward Clark, and how her bias was so obvious that the powers that be had to do something about it. Swoopes didn't get the boot because she was too busy. She got it because she can't stand seeing Clark shine. Now let's talk about the mess she's been spewing about Clark. On Gilbert Arenas' podcast, Gil's Arena, Swoopes went off, saying Clark played 5 seasons in college and was chucking up over 40 shots a game. Like, where is she even getting these numbers? Clark played the standard 4 seasons and averaged around 22.7 shots per game. Facts that anyone with half a brain and a quick Google search could figure out. But Swoopes was too busy spreading lies, probably hoping no one would catch on. When she got called out, she tried to backpedal, sliding into Clark's DMs to apologize and act like it was all just a misunderstanding. Yeah, right. We see through that act. Clark, being the class act she is, took the high road, accepted the apology, and kept doing what she does best, dominating on the court. She's been the heartbeat of the Indiana Fever, dropping points like it's nothing, racking up assists, and leading her team to victory after victory. The Fever, who started off with a rough season, turned things around, all thanks to Clark's game-changing performances. They're sitting at a 17-16 record now, and Clark's making everyone take notice. But of course, Swoopes can't even bring herself to say Clark's name, much less give her the credit she deserves. Even on her own podcast, Queens of the Court, Swoopes went out of her way to ignore Clark. She went on and on about how great everyone else on the Fever was, but couldn't muster up a single good word for Clark. Stephen A. Smith called her out, saying that it's clear as day that Swoopes is letting her personal issues get in the way of her professional duties. He didn't mince words, pointing out that Swoopes knows basketball too well to just forget to mention Clark. Swoopes didn't take kindly to the criticism, of course. She ran to Twitter, whining about how she has the right to her own opinions, and how she knows these players personally. But let's be real, this isn't about her knowing people or having opinions. This is about her not doing her job and acting like she's still the main character when she's not. The WNBA is moving on, and Caitlyn Clark is leading the charge, while Swoopes is stuck in the past, unable to handle the fact that the game and the league has evolved beyond her. And then there's Nancy Lieberman, who stepped in for Swoopes during the Fever versus Wings game. Lieberman didn't hold back when it came to praising Clark, calling her a game changer and pointing out that she's doing incredible things for the WNBA. Lieberman said Clark should be celebrated, not just tolerated, and that her impact could one day make WNBA players multimillionaires, just like how stars like Michael Jordan changed the game for the NBA. Lieberman was out here giving Clark her flowers, while Swoopes was somewhere sulking in a corner, too mad to admit that maybe, just maybe, Clark deserves the spotlight. Lieberman, a true professional, understands the importance of lifting up the next generation. She's not threatened by Clark. She's excited to see the sport grow. Meanwhile, Swoopes is busy throwing a tantrum because she's not the center of attention anymore. It's pathetic and sad, and it's doing real damage to her legacy. She could have been remembered as a pioneer who paved the way for players like Clark. Instead, she's turning into a bitter has-been who's too caught up in her own ego to see the bigger picture. The WNBA doesn't have time for this nonsense. The league is finally getting the recognition it deserves, and it's because of players like Clark who are pushing the boundaries and making the game exciting again. But Swoopes is too wrapped up in her own insecurities to join the celebration. She'd rather cling to her past than embrace the future, and it's costing her big time. Bally Sports Southwest and the Dallas Wings made the right call pulling Swoopes from the broadcast. They don't need someone who's going to let personal wars cloud their judgment. Swoopes isn't just embarrassing herself, she's hurting the WNBA's image, and that's something the league can't afford. The fans are here for the drama on the court, not off it, and Swoopes' antics are starting to wear thin. What's truly disappointing is how Swoopes just doesn't seem to get it. She's still out here, tweeting up a storm, acting like she's the one being wronged when she's the one throwing stones. She's not fooling anyone, though. The fans see through it, Stephen A. Smith sees through it, and the WNBA sees through it. Swoopes has a choice. Keep acting like this or take a step back, admit she messed up, and start supporting the new stars who are making the league great again. But if she keeps up this nonsense, she shouldn't be surprised when the WNBA moves on without her. Clark isn't going anywhere, and neither is the new wave of talent that's taking over the WNBA. Swoopes can either get with the program or get out of the way, but she needs to stop pretending that her bitterness is justified. The league deserves better, the fans deserve better, and quite frankly, Swoopes should want better for herself. She's got to put down the Twitter fingers, stop the shade, and start acting like the legend she once was. If she doesn't, she'll be remembered not as the trailblazer who helped build the WNBA, but as the bitter ex-player who couldn't handle being outshined. And that's a legacy no one should want.